Today is Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, and we're going to be looking at the June 11th primary results from the state of Alaska, where Sarah Palin, former candidate for Vice President of the United States, is leading in the primary to become the next U.S. House of Representatives congresswoman or congressman from the state of Alaska. The special election was caused by the death of Representative Don Young, who at the time was the oldest congressman in the House of Representatives. And so now we have this special election, which is going to be held this summer. Sarah Palin is really attempting to make a significant political comeback. She has not held political office for some time. She was governor of Alaska in the early 2000s when she ran to become vice president of the United States with John McCain in 2008. Ultimately, though, McCain and Palin lost out to Obama and Biden. But nonetheless, Palin continuing her political activities, being involved with the Tea Party movement, and more recently aligning herself as a supporter of Donald Trump. And that is helping to pay dividends in this special election here in the House seat in Alaska. Before running for this seat, Sarah Palin was in consultation with Donald Trump, who encouraged her to run to become a congresswoman from the state of Alaska. In this race, she has Donald Trump's endorsement, and that has helped her. She also does have significant name recognition, given that she has been involved in local Alaska politics and in national politics. And she's been involved, and she's someone that most voters know of, whether that be from her time in Alaska or whether that be from what she did on the national stage. These are the actual election results. We should note that only 54.4% of the ballots are currently reported, or precincts are reported, so the results are still subject to some change. Nonetheless, Sarah Palin coming in with a plurality of votes, 32,000 votes, almost 30% of the electorate. Behind her is Nick Begich III from the powerful Begich political family in the state of Alaska. One of the Begiches previously being a U.S. Senator from the state of Alaska, coming in with almost 20% of the vote. Al Gross running as an independent this time. He ran to be the U.S. Senator from Alaska in 2020. He ran as a Democrat, but he ultimately lost that race. He gets around 12.5% of the vote. And then the only Democrat which will make it into this special primary election appears to be Mary Peltola. She gets around 7.5% of the vote. Alaska's at-large congressional district special primary appearing to be similar to the jungle primaries that we see a lot of in California, where essentially all the candidates get put on the ballot, and the top candidates are the ones that make it to the general election in November. In this case, the top four candidates being the ones that make it to the primary election, or rather the special election, this upcoming, let's see, what day is it going to be? August 16th. So August 16th, Sarah Palin, Nick Begich III, Al Gross, and a fourth candidate, potentially Mary Peltola, are the ones that will be vying to become the next congressman from the state of Alaska. If we look at some of the opinion polling in advance of this special primary election, we could see that Sarah Palin was doing decently, at least around April 7th through 9th. She had 31% of the electorate, and she was leading Nick Begich III, who was her closest competitor, or rather Al Gross, actually. She was leading Al Gross by around 5 percentage points. Al Gross coming in with 26% of the vote in that particular poll, and Nick Begich III coming in with 21%. That was, quite honestly, woefully wrong. Al Gross really not garnering that significant a percentage of the vote, and Nick Begich being further behind Sarah Palin. The percentage that they gave for Sarah Palin appearing to be much closer to what it is in this election result. But if we look at the May 6th through 9th primary data, the polling data, had almost Sarah Palin and Nick Begich III almost neck and neck with one another. Santa Claus and Al Gross would have been the potential third and fourth candidates. Al Gross, 13%, certainly being much closer to the amount of support that he received. But Sarah Palin, outperforming this 19% there, coming in with around 30% of the vote. And so at this point, it does appear to be very much so a contest between Sarah Palin and Nick Begich III. Nick Begich III really getting a significant amount of endorsements from the Alaskan political establishment. You can see here that he has a bunch of endorsements from state senators and state representatives in the state of Alaska, as well as the Alaska Republican Party. And he's really trying to use these endorsements to show that he is the candidate that should be elected to be the next congressman from the state of Alaska. But nonetheless, that's sort of running into exactly what Sarah Palin wants to portray herself as. She wants to portray herself as an anti-establishment Republican, as someone that's not in cahoots with the state senators, the state representatives, the state Republican Party, almost as though an independent Republican in the vein of Donald Trump. And you can see here that even though she, has fewer endorsements than does Nick Begich III, she certainly has some very important ones. She has from Donald Trump, from Nikki Haley, from Donald Trump Jr., from Kimberly Guilfoyle, and even from Elise Stefanik, who has always been supportive of increasing the number of Republican congresswomen in the House of Representatives. Nonetheless, Sarah Palin proving to do quite well in this special primary election. She is leading by quite a significant margin, and quite fairly, she is favored to win the special election, which will be held this August 16th. And it would be an interesting addition to the House of Representatives. Sarah Palin, a very outspoken, very controversial public figure, especially with her involvement in the Tea Party, as well as her recent lawsuit against the New York Times for alleged defamation. But nonetheless, this would be an interesting turnaround for Alaskan politics. It'd also be an interesting comeback for Sarah Palin, generally not present in the political landscape, at least in terms of office, for the past couple of years, now making a return to her roots, going back to Alaska to represent Alaskans in Congress.